All right, good evening. Welcome to PS. This is The Last of Us, a show where we discuss the HBO series The Last of Us. Each week, we'll be giving our opinions, criticisms, and having discussions of each episode in the series. We'll also be discussing the PlayStation Award-winning game of the same title and weighing that against the other. Now, this show will be available each Monday night on our YouTube channel, and we will be spoiling the game in these conversations and the episodes. And we're going to be having the conversations with an understanding that you, the viewer, have watched the episode we are about to talk about and most likely have played The Last of Us. For those just stopping by, my name is Fred Oakman. This is Jake Peters, and we host a weekly PlayStation podcast titled PS This is Awesome, a PlayStation podcast. And we've been going strong for many years. So if you're interested in weekly PlayStation discussions or interested in viewing more content like this video, just go ahead and subscribe to our channel, and we will do the rest of the heavy lifting. Lastly, we do have a Patreon for our PlayStation podcast, so if you like what we're doing here or there, for $1 a month, we'll give you a shout out on the show, and we'll mail you a free die-cut vinyl sticker. And you can find that at patreon.com/PS This Is Awesome. And your $1 a month goes a long ways, helping us sustain the cost of doing the show. So today we're obviously going to be having a conversation about Season 1 of The Last of Us, Episode 6, titled Kin. Titled Kin, Jake.
Mm-hmm.
So this is going to be some sort of poignant thing I was going to follow up with. I had nothing. So we'll do a high-level thing about the show. It's 3 months after the Sam and Henry thing, and essentially this game covers, or this episode covers quite a bit of what happens in the game. They covered a lot of ground fast, and they left out something that I thought was kind of a bummer. But Joel meets up with Tommy, and then essentially whatever goes on there goes on, some of it, and then they head out and they're on their way to the campus, and we get a glimpse of that. So, like I said, Jake, this starts off 3 months later. They make a nice reference. Now, for some of the trailers before they started airing the series, we got this glimpse of this couple, like just kind of saying, there's a scene where Ellie's talking to presumably a husband and wife who living off the grid, staying alive during the some said pandemic, during the this whole apocalyptic world, and it says something about crossing the river, and the guy's like, yeah, you don't want to go over there. I would suggest going the opposite way or whatever. And then Ellie's like, that's not gonna scare Russ, and the guy's like, well, scared him. And I was like, what the fuck part of the game is that? When they were showing that in the trailer, I'm like, who are these people? Where'd they come from? This is where it comes into play. So it shows Joel and Ellie hunting, and they have a dead rabbit, and Jake, what'd you make of this whole section? I'm doing a bad job at explaining what happened, but
I don't know what you're talking about, because the episode starts with the old man coming home with the rabbits that he was hunting, and Joel and Ellie are already in his house.
That's right. Yeah. These guys, like this man and this woman, right? They're they're not in the game, but that conversation happens in the trailer for The Last of Us, and this guy has a rabbit, and I think the significance of the rabbit is in the game when it flips to Ellie. You see this really cute innocent rabbit, and it just gets impaled by an arrow, and you realize that Ellie is hunting, and I think that's the significance of the rabbit that this guy has, and subsequently later Ellie steals from him. I thought it was a nice little nod to the game. Joel tells he's got the lady at gunpoint. The guy comes in with a rabbit, and they're really friendly people. Like he was just like, why didn't you shoot him? And she's like, the gun was way over there. Like real calm, like. And she's like, I fed him soup. He was hungry or something. I already fed him. And Ellie comes down, and she's got a mouth on her. And the guy who brought the rabbit in, older guy, is just kind of like, hey, wow. And, he's kind of laughing. And they're like seem really friendly. It doesn't seem like a nervous laugh either.
I like that this is a husband and wife. They appear to be like a Native American couple that have clearly lived sort of off the grid, basically. It seems like maybe their whole lives. And they're just unimpressed with Joel and Ellie coming into their house and holding them at gunpoint. And they're just like cracking wise. And it's hilarious coming out of these two elderly people. This lady who's like this big woman sitting in this rocking chair, just kind of like giving these one word answers. And yeah, there were some funny parts about how whenever he was like, you made them soup? And she was like, it's cold outside. And I don't know. There was this, it was kind of funny. That whole sequence, Joel's just trying to find where they're at on the map because he has no idea where they are.
He doesn't even know, yeah.
And I was looking at a map of the United States, and it looks like over the course of 3 months, they really only made it across Kansas, and that's it. So I don't know what that means. How long would it take you? Let's see what Google says. So I'm going to go from Kansas City directions. We're going to see how long Google thinks it'll take me to walk.
Yeah.
So we're going to go to the first town in Colorado, Burlington.
Yeah.
And we're going to walk.
What's the time on
142 hours is what it says.
Divide that out by 24.
So that's 6 days, but they're not walking 24 hours a day.
Right.
So if you imagine, let's say they walk 10 hours a day or 12, because they're going to have obstacles and things like that.
So we're talking like 15 days, 20 days. Maybe.
You're looking at about half a month. So I don't know what the fuck they're doing for 3 months. Maybe they were holed up somewhere
it's also
for a
winter,
bit.
right? So it's probably harder.
I get that. But it's just kind of interesting to me that they said that it almost seems like if it took that long, something must have happened that they didn't want to talk about just because they could have just got on an interstate and literally just walked the whole distance and they could have been there in, a couple, 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Or a month at most, you know what I mean? It took them 3 months to get there. I don't know. It's kind of interesting.
There's a lot of mountains in Kansas, so.
Because they were basically implying, that they were like either just inside of Colorado or just before Colorado when they got to that cabin. And so I'm not going to sit here and nitpick about freaking geography and how long it takes to walk places, but it could be that they're just trying to line up with the game because the game you get to wintertime when you get to Colorado. Mm-hmm. And but in the game they're coming from Pittsburgh, not fucking Kansas City.
Yeah, that's kind of
strange. So it's like 3 more states over. So yeah, I can understand it maybe taking 3 months. But yeah, I don't know. It's but all in all, that section's really cool. Joel has this like heart attack fucking thing as he like is leaving this place, and it's interesting because it happens one other time in the show.
Well, he does the map thing inside though, right? First, let's talk about that.
Well, yeah, they're like, yeah, don't cross the river because like bad shit happens. Dead people, like infected and non-infected people, end up dead. Nobody goes there. Don't go there is what this old couple says. And Joel's like, fuck it, we're going anyway.
But he does that thing. And he does the thing that he does that Ellie learns from him is you have one person show you, and then you have the other person confirm. And that was cool. Now that might come back up here in a little bit, that map trick. But it's just a way of verifying the data, right? He's like, I already asked her. She pointed to a place on the map. So whatever you point to better be the same place. And then they can't communicate in front of him, and he's like, did you tell him the truth? And she's like, yeah. And he goes, are you telling me the truth? And she's like, yeah. So then he points to the place. I forget what the place was, though. What was the place he was asking to know? The river?
he was asking where they were at on the
Okay,
map
that's what it was. Sorry, yeah, right.
because he had no idea where they were, and then he asked how to get to wherever the fuck the Fireflies are at or
Yeah.
something. And he was like, "Oh, well, there's some shit going on over here." So I don't remember exactly what the dialogue was, but yeah, it involved them crossing this river to go west, and they were talking about how you don't want to go over there because all this bad shit happens.
Right.
And obviously they're all like, "Oh, we're not scared," and Ellie's being a wise ass like she normally is, and
Yeah.
they go to leave, and she steals the rabbits, which I thought was kind of interesting that Joel just let her take them. He kind of like pushed back a little bit, and then she was just like, who fucking cares, and just took them anyway. And he was like, whatever. And then he has that like heart attack or whatever.
Yeah,
like,
he
as
starts
they're
having
leaving.
this.
And
Yeah, we come to find out later it's a manifestation of his own anxiety and
His
doubt
concern,
in
yeah.
himself. But he's just the weight of the situation is he doesn't have that in the game. But yeah, he kind of, and I'm like, oh my god, is this how Joel's gonna get hurt? Is this what's gonna happen? Because we know if we play the game, Joel's gonna get hurt, right? He has to.
yeah, I was with you there. I thought that's maybe what they were going. Maybe they were gonna bypass the whole Joel getting stabbed thing. Maybe he has like a heart attack or something. And
I'm glad that that's not what that was.
yeah,
Personally.
I'll be honest. I have if almost basically all of these episodes are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Even this one is amazing. But if I had one gripe about this episode, it's like Joel's emotional state.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's a little much. If we're thinking about the game and we're thinking about how it was portrayed in the game, now I understand that they have a lot less time in the TV show to kind of get points across than they do in the game. But like, for example, not to jump ahead a bit because we'll come back to this, but like the conversation that him and Tommy have about Ellie,
Right.
like that exact conversation happens in the game, but like Joel's behavior is completely different in the video game.
Right. I feel like in the show they
And-
feel like they needed to earn that somehow, and they did that by having him manifest his own doubts in himself. Which
And
is
it's like,
that's not who Joel is to me though. Like Joel's a confident dude. You know?
Well, I can understand. I mean, even in the game, like he clearly has some doubts about, or not even so much. He clearly has some doubts because that whole scene happens in the show where he doesn't think he can protect Ellie.
Right.
But like,
But it's more
I don't
so
know. There's just something.
Yeah, I think in the game it comes across more so that it's not that he doesn't think he can do it. It's more so he doesn't want to risk the effect of feeling the loss if he fucks up. Like, I think he's still confident. He just doesn't want the responsibility. Like I think
He's like in denial.
yeah. But in the show,
Yeah,
we'll get
it's-
to the conversation in the show. We'll compare them here in a minute.
But I just, as far as this whole heart attack thing goes, like I don't know. To me, it feels kind of hokey.
Yeah,
Like
I don't
he could have
disagree.
had like there could have been like a reflective moment.
Well, they
where
did
he
have
is
that a
like-
little bit.
Well, sure. I mean, there's the whole scene where he like thinks he sees his daughter and all that, which is great. But like the whole thing where he's just like, oh my heart, like it was a little too literal for me. You know what I mean? Like if he had actually been having a heart attack, I would have been a little bit more okay with it. But the fact that you find out later that it's just like, oh, he is just worried, and then it becomes it feels a little bit. I don't know. I'm not gonna say it's bad. It just feels a little bit unnecessary.
He doesn't.
They like.
Yeah.
They really take a lot of the air out of Joel's machismo in this episode.
I agree 100%. It's weird. It didn't strike, like I said, it doesn't strike me as the character of Joel to outwardly display or to be so affected to have this outward appearance of being broken. He's not that dude. Like, he's that dude when he gets stabbed and he's about to die, and then you're concerned for him. But don't like make us feel bad for him in this way, or make us feel like he can't take it, because it takes away from him getting hurt. Because then when he gets hurt, he's a human. Yeah, this guy's a human. He can get hurt. He can get affected by things.
Right.
But it's like, I want to believe that this guy's just a fucking wrecking crew, and he's just a badass like delivery guy, and he's not emotionally attached. And part of the beauty of his relationship with Ellie is that even though he would be the last one to admit it, you can see it as the viewer that he's attached to her, right? And that's what makes it so interesting, is that we all can see it a mile away, but he's not accepting that she's affecting him the way, but to have this outward fucking panic attack or anxiety attack, when there's literally no threat at that moment, the first time he does it, they're just walking in the snow, but I'm sure your mind would wander. So I don't know. I think they could have done just as well without that, 100%. So I don't disagree with you. Does it ruin the show? No. Does it ruin the episode? No. So she steals the rabbit, and now we smash cut to them camping, right? They're camping. Joel has duct tape, and he's trying to tape his shoe up, which we see again later. And she, is this where she asks him if he could be anything, what would he want to be? And then he said he would want to be a sheep farmer. And then Ellie said she wanted to be an astronaut. I think that occurs around the fire. And they're getting along, whatever. Ellie climbs a rock. He's worried that she's going to fall off, and he's being protected. Get down, you're going to kill yourself. You're going to fall off that thing, And she's looking at the sky, the stars and stuff. But it's nice to see him camp out. I know Naughty Dog, the game behind the developer behind the game, have posted at times artwork of cartoon characters with Joel and Ellie camping out. So it's kind of nice to see that in the show. I don't know. It's kind of neat. Jake, anything on the camping? That whole scene?
I thought it was cool. I thought how, they talked about going to, like, Ellie was interested in going to space, and it's kind of like your first sort of introduction to that whole side of her character, about how interested she is in space and all that. Mm-hmm. And she talks about how her favorite astronaut is Sally Ride and all this stuff because she read all the books at the QZ and everything.
She has a perfect last name.
I love that I like the whole part where Joel's like, I'm going to have both watches. And it's almost like you're thinking as the viewer, like, why? And you start to realize that it's because he's starting to feel these things and he's being overprotective. Mm-hmm. And then he falls asleep on the job, and he wakes up and he's like all nervous, and she's there holding the gun, and he's like grilling her about it like a dad.
She's like, I kept the high ground. I did this. I looked, everything you taught me, we're fine.
And then he gives her the nod, which is cool. I mean, this is like the start of their sort of like trust. Growth. Like this is kind of how it sort of happened in the game a little bit, is that them just kind of building and building and building. And if they did do, one thing that I think was like the whole scene, the whole part with Tommy, and we'll get to the scene later, not the scene with Tommy, but like the scene of the episode. It is the part in the game where their relationship really turns around. Mm. And I think that they did a really good job of that. I don't remember. Do you remember how Joel and Ellie get mixed up with Tommy in the game? Like, do they get run down by horses, or is it just they come up to the dam and they get questioned?
You come up to the dam, and as far as you know in the game, you don't even know that Tommy's there. And then she's just like, what do you want? She's up, the wife is up top yelling over the edge. And he's like, we just came, we just need some food, or we just need a place to stay or something like that. I don't know what it is. And then she's like real apprehensive about it, and they let him in. And then it turns out that Tommy's there. So again, in the game, Joel's intention is not to find his brother Tommy. Tommy just shows up in the game. Joel's not on a quest to find him. It just happens. But yeah, so I don't think that the horse scene is there, but they do have horses in Jackson.
Oh, sure.
And so I mean, the horse stuff makes sense. And before we get to the horse thing, they talk about the river of death, right? And they're worried. And Ellie's there. They're crossing this river over this really neat bridge. And for the viewers, and Jake, I don't know if you knew this or not, but there's an overhead drone shot of them getting ready to cross the bridge. And HBO notoriously left in a Starbucks cup of coffee in Game of Thrones. And there's a scene, a quick shot before they cross this bridge, Joel and Ellie, where you can see the film crew on the ground. And
I didn't even notice.
I didn't either. I saw it after the fact. It's just like a few people dressed in black. It's an overhead shot, and you see them kind of tucked away to the side, but you can definitely see them just standing there while Joel and Ellie are walking. And I was like, that's too bad. Someone's like, just re-upload the episode, edit it out, re-upload it. They might. Who knows? There's like pictures of it, but they cross.
Do you know?
Go ahead.
When they're crossing the river,
when they're crossing the bridge that they think is the bridge for the River of Death. That first scene.
Let me see. I'm like scrubbing through the episode as we're.
There's like a drone shot, I think, right before they get to the bridge. That's cool that you have it pulled up like that. I was gonna maybe try to find it and send it to you, but I mean, if you just look it up online, I'm sure I can pull up a screen grab of it. Last of Us.
No, it's fine. I'll just look an eye out for it. We can just keep going on the podcast while I'm.
Okay. So they cross the River of Death, and they're like, well, it wasn't very scary. They fire off a couple rounds, see if anybody returns, returns the shot or anything like that. And nobody does. And then Ellie's trying to whistle, and it's just this noise. It's just like, and he's like, what are you doing? And she goes, I'm trying to whistle. And he's like, you can't whistle? And she goes, obviously not. She's like, I don't know how you guys do this. And that's in the game. Ellie does that in the game. That's nice. It's just more of them. And they kind of joke about how the River of Death wasn't very scary, and they were just trying to scare him off and all that stuff. And then they actually get to another river. Looked more like a lake to me, but it's a body of water. And you see the water plant. One thing that I thought was really funny was so earlier in this show, Joel. Yeah, so this is where Ellie's like, "What does that do?" And he's like, "Oh, it makes electricity." And she goes, "How?" And he goes, "Don't even ask. I have no fucking clue." And she's like, "You could have told me anything, and I would have believed it." And he kind of shrugs it off, But that looks identical to the water generator in the game, the dam, rather, and that Tommy is at. And they get across that area, and Ellie's like...
Oh, yeah, I see it. Sorry, I was watching. Yeah. I did find that scene.
You see
it's pretty funny. They're just standing there. Like, I would have never noticed it had you not said something.
I didn't notice it, yeah, but it's there.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're fine. And then they get to this water, and Ellie's like, are you sure that this isn't the River of Death? And he kind of pauses, and he's looking at... Apparently, he's not good at reading maps, and he starts looking at the map, and he's like, And then no sooner than shortly after she says that, they get surrounded by people on horses. And they're not pleasant. They're not nice. And they're essentially just saying... put the weapon down, drop the weapon. You step 10 steps back, and Joel's trying to reason with them, and they just don't. They don't even want him to talk, And then he's like, well, the dog's gonna be able to tell whether you're infected or not. And of course, as the viewer, you're like, well, Ellie's infected, but she's not like infected, but she's been bitten. It's like, is the dog gonna pick up on that? And if it does, these guys are clearly just gonna shoot him. Like, this is what they do. And it's like, oh, shit. So, they come, they sniff Joel, and he's in the clear. But you can just sense how nervous he is about this situation. He can't speak up. He doesn't know what to say. What could you say at that point? He's literally surrounded by people with rifles on horses. It's over. It's game over if Ellie's detected to have this, right? and the dog runs up, and it's a very tense moment. And Ellie kind of just starts laughing and playing with the dog, and it's like, oh shit, okay, so we're good. Because she's not actually infected. She's been bitten. Maybe the dog can't tell, right? Or maybe the dog's just a I don't know. What do they call it?
I don't know. This whole scene was different from the game, and it was interesting how it kind of played out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It was interesting that they used a dog. Like, there's nothing in the game that would lead you to believe that it's possible for a dog to tell if somebody's infected.
And they have the scanners.
And there's nothing. There's obviously they had the scanners, but it's just like how I guess a dog could maybe know.
Dogs
I don't know
can sense cancer in people. They have cancer-smelling dogs. They have dogs that obviously like in that rubble that we just saw in Turkey that would smell out living bodies and then find deceased people. And then dogs have an acute sense of smell. I guess it is something maybe dogs could pick up on, but part of me is like, is this just a ruse to see if they run? Are they just threatening? Like, and then like obviously if you're infected and they're gonna stick a dog on you, you're not gonna let it come up to you, right? Like majority of people aren't gonna just risk that. You're probably gonna turn and run, and then that's a tall tale that person's obviously hiding something. I don't know. Or maybe the dog really does. Maybe it really does smell the infected. But it didn't in this case, and that's good. They got through that test, and the conversation comes up, and he's just like, listen, we're just passing through. We don't mean any harm. And he's like, well, you bought yourself another 10 seconds being a hard ass, this dude. And I don't know how. I think he says we're on our way to find my brother or something like that. And then she goes, well, who's your brother? And he says, Tommy. And then smash cut to them going to Jackson together. So, what'd you think?
I mean, I don't know. Like, we don't need to recap the whole fucking episode. I mean,
right, but what'd you think
about...
What'd you think about... I mean, I think in order for them to make that work, they had to put Joel in the vicinity of Tommy, right? Because what are the chances that he's going to run into Tommy's group randomly?
I mean, they play it out basically like they play out the game. They just bypass the hydroelectric dam,
the shootout
portion
there,
of it,
the ambush,
where there's like a shootout there. Because like in the game, you go to the dam and Tommy's there just trying to get the dam working so they can power Jackson.
Yeah. Whereas
like in the show, it's already working. Fuck it, we're just gonna go straight to Jackson.
It's like huge. Jackson's huge.
I don't know if you felt this, like, because after basically after he admits that he's Tommy's brother or whatever, they just take him to Jackson, and that's where Tommy and Joel reunite.
Mm-hmm.
But Jackson, the way that they portrayed it in the show, felt much more Last of Us 2 to me.
The intro to Last of Us 2, yeah, the beginning of that game,
Then Last
identical.
of Us 1.
The snowmen, the kids playing, the different...
The whole scene in the one room with all the lights hanging from the ceiling.
100%.
It was all very, very Last of Us 2, which is cool. I mean, I don't know how much Jackson really would have changed between Last of Us 1 and 2, but I mean, it's years go by, so you would think it could change quite a bit.
Get bigger, you'd think.
But I don't know. I like the idea of them living in this town, and they're just like, you find out that the reason why the old couple thought that there was bad shit across the river was because the community of Jackson, anytime somebody tried to attack them, they would fucking kill them and throw them out there as a deterrent to make people think that it's a bad area. And it's in order to like keep this way of life. And it's an interesting kind of thought, because even this town that's wholesome, everybody shares what they have, they're celebrating Christmas,
it's a commune.
There's no real bad shit going on. It's a commune. Everyone has got food, everyone's got shelter, there's electricity. It's like basically heaven on earth for what this world is now. And even they, to survive, have to subscribe to just gratuitous violence and like throwing corpses out into the wilderness to deter people and like all of this stuff. It's really interesting when you think about it that even this town of Jackson, which is as close to the old way as you could possibly get, they still can't avoid the dangers and the violence that's required by this world. It's really kind of an interesting point. And I love the weird juxtaposition of Joel's character in the show, how he's like, him and Tommy are so clearly happy to see each other. And I know that they kind of embrace and stuff in the game or whatever, but Joel's basically all business in the game when it comes to Tommy.
Oh, yeah.
And in the show, like, they're like really happy to see each other. He didn't know that, like, you know, Tommy was doing so well for himself and all that. And the conflict between them. So in the game, it's because Joel, I was just watching the scene from the game because we were talking about where Tommy agrees to take Ellie to the university, and I didn't think it was Joel was that emotional. So I was like, I looked it up in the game real quick, and in the game, Joel is just like, you owe me. I don't want to do this. You owe me. Right. I just want to be on my way. I want to have supplies. I want to get out of here.
I'm done with this shit. I'm out.
And in the show, the conflict happens because Joel is jealous of how successful Tommy has become. That part of it is different. And I think that it's interesting because Joel, in both instances, is struggling with his emotions, but in the game, it's more about him bottling his emotions for Ellie, and in the show, it's more about, there is that too, but it's more about him being, it's also about him being sort of like, his brother's the one that's supposed to fuck up, not him. And here he finds Tommy's been safe this whole time, and he's thriving, he has a baby on the way, he's married, and it's interesting. And I thought that part was kind of neat because they're like catching up and they're having drinks or whatever. And then it's not until Tommy reveals that he's having a kid that Joel's basically just gives him the old middle finger, and they start having their argument, and he walks out the door. But
yeah, Tommy says something like, you know, I wonder if I'm going to be a good dad or father. And Joel goes, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Meaning, like, it's not that fucking easy. Like, mine died. Yeah.
You know, I don't know if you noticed this, too, because during that scene, Ellie is with... I
can't remember her name, dude.
The fuck's her name?
I don't remember her name.
I thought it started with
the
an
actress
M.
is in True Blood.
Yeah, she's great. I can't remember her name, but it was.
You keep your thought going. I'll get the name.
The woman who plays Tommy's wife. There's an interesting scene in the game when but right before Joel and Tommy have their argument, where Tommy's like, "I found this and I kept it in pretty good shape. I want you to have it." And it's a picture of Joel and Sarah. Maria, you're right. So in the game, Joel gets upset because Tommy had saved a picture of Joel and Sarah with like a soccer trophy.
Yeah.
And he's like, I thought you might want to have this.
Right. That didn't come up.
And Joel's like, yeah. And Joel's like, no, I'm good. And in the TV show, Joel doesn't have that interaction with Tommy, but Ellie sees a little chalkboard memorial to Sarah in Maria's house. Maria and Tommy's house. Whenever, and then Maria gives her a haircut, and there's this whole part where Maria lets it slip that Joel had a daughter who died, and Ellie didn't know that.
Yeah, I think Maria just figured everybody knew, but Joel was never open about that with Ellie.
And I can't remember, I think in the game maybe Maria lets it slip when they're the two of them are hanging out as well in in the game. But I can't remember.
I don't recall how she
it
gets
doesn't.
the information, but yeah, she learns in the game, and then it becomes a topic that Joel puts the kibosh on right away, and he's like, "No, we don't have this discussion."
But I don't know if you have any, because clearly, even in the show, what the fuck's her name? Maria is still pretty cold towards Joel because she knows the type of life that Joel and Tommy led.
Yeah, they were bad dudes.
And there's this altercation between her and Ellie, and Ellie's like defending Joel. And she's like, you don't know, only the ones you trust can betray you and all this, which is pretty interesting. But
I like how Ellie just goes, "What? That he's killed a lot of people? Yeah, I already know that." And then she goes,
"So is Tommy, or
so
whatever."
Is Tommy. Yeah, yeah, right. Just valid fucking point. Kids will always speak the truth as bluntly as possible.
But I don't know what your thoughts were of how they changed. I don't think this really made that much of a difference towards the,
I thought it was
game.
Fun.
One of the things, just kind of like, I love these little attention to detail, these details that they pay attention to in the TV show, even like far and above the game, where like these inclusive moments that are just natural. Like we talked about this previously on a previous episode, how there are these inclusive moments that are just natural. Like they're not shoving it down your throat or anything. It's just a natural kind of scene. And there's a scene, and Sarah pointed it out to me. We were talking about it a little bit, where they're in the, like, we'll call it the town hall or whatever, and they're all watching a movie together.
Yeah, right.
And I don't know if you noticed, but in the front row watching the movie, there was, just in the audience, there was a child with Down syndrome.
Yeah, for sure. I saw that.
And it's just very it's very thought provoking, in like they've built a community where somebody like that could survive a world like this.
Yeah.
And everybody is there, and they're all together, and they're all watching this movie and taking care of each other. And it's pretty interesting because you can imagine anywhere else that kid probably doesn't make it.
Sure.
And I don't know. I just thought it was really cool how, like, once again, they were able to sort of include a demographic that doesn't normally see a lot of screen time, and in a way that is very natural and kind of thought-provoking because of the world that they're living in.
Yeah, and it was, like you said, it wasn't like in your face. It wasn't like, it didn't feel like the inclusion was just to check a box, right? Because it wasn't like, we're going to zoom in on this particular child during the scene so you guys see this. It was like, no, I definitely saw that, but it wasn't like you said, they weren't throwing it in your face. And again, hats off to Naughty Dog and HBO for just more accurately representing what real life is in a very not so realistic fucking show. But it's just kind of nice. You know what I mean? Very cool. I'm glad you brought that up because I remember that, but I didn't make a note of it.
But I will admit that I love, and I'm not sure kind of where you were gonna push the episode, but it really, this is where it kind of really culminates with Joel and Tommy. Like there's this scene where at the campfire, Joel is like duct taping his boot.
Yeah.
Because his boots are clearly falling apart. And you notice that, like, and I don't know if you noticed this, but I noticed it, and I don't know if it was intentional or not, but clearly the stuff that Ellie has and that she's wearing is in much better shape than his.
Yeah.
So, like, you almost think that maybe along the way, he's making sure that she's getting new boots.
Yeah, Joel's probably killing
garb
children to give their clothes to Ellie.
Yeah, or something. Or maybe they're just like, stopping at the local fucking Kmart or something.
The
but
thrift store or something. Before I know where you're going, but before this, we just need to make it clear to the listener that Joel and Tommy already had this conversation. They had a conversation, and Joel was like, "Listen, Tommy, how long does it take to get to Colorado? We need to get there." And Tommy's just like, "Listen, man, I can't do this. I can't do this. I've got a kid on the way. So he turns Joel down. He says, no, dude, I'm not going to do this. I can't. And Joel kind of gives him shit. And it's like, what, your wife's not going to approve? He's just kind of fucking jarring him along like a brother would do. But, like, also meaning it. Like I came all the way the fuck out here, and you're not going to help me with this?
Yeah, when they're in the bar before they have the fight or whatever.
Yeah, he puts the brass tacks on him, and Tommy stands strong and stands firm. He's just like, no, I'm not. I can't. I've got my life here. I can't do this. I'm sorry. So smash cut to Joel's fucked up boot. They're watching the movie. It cuts to a scene of Joel in this like this tannery shop or some sort of like some sort of shop that they have put together for woodworking or whatever. And Joel's sitting there and he's trying to cobble together the sole of his shoe, and Tommy walks in. So, Jake, you can take it away.
So, basically, Tommy brings him a new pair of boots. Like, hey, I know your boots are fucked up. Here's some boots. And then this is kind of one of those scenes, and it kind of comes across in the game a little bit too, but I think they do a better job of it in the TV show where you understand that Tommy, at this point, the roles have flipped. Tommy is much more put together than Joel.
Yeah.
At this point. He comes in and he's like, he recognizes that Joel didn't mean everything that he said.
Right.
And that he's having some kind of an issue. And so he comes in and they talk about it. And this is where, sort of like I was mentioning earlier, one of my gripes of the episode happened is that it's supposed to be this powerful scene. And I suppose probably to the person that is unfamiliar with the game and the characters maybe would feel that it is a powerful scene. But for the rest of us, like in the TV show, Joel has like a fucking emotional breakdown in front of Tommy.
Yeah, it's really
and he's
weird.
Like, he's like crying and talking about how he can't do it because he's failing all this time, and all he thinks about is how he failed his daughter and all this shit. And like, don't get me wrong, I mean that's a powerful sentiment, but in the game, like, Joel is processing all of this internally, and he's just being an asshole.
And he's got this hard exterior.
Yeah, and so I don't know if they were trying for the sake of the audience and the sake of maybe, like, they wanted to get the audience to like Joel a little faster by showing him having a weak moment. Because in the game, you have hours and hours and hours with him during this whole sequence. And so you have a little bit more time to sort of unpack Joel's character.
Yeah, Joel
but in the show, you don't have as much time.
Yeah, Joel tells Tommy that he's having these dreams at night. And Tommy's like, well, what the hell are you dreaming? And he goes, I don't even know. He just goes, I know that when I wake up, though, I'm scared. And he's like, I'm weak. And he's like, when I wake up, I know that I've lost something. He says he's always failing in his sleep, and it's all he ever does is fail. And he tells Tommy, Ellie has the cure, and he's just pleading again for Tommy to take Ellie. He's like, you got to do this. I'm gonna fail. I'm not gonna be able to do this. I'm gonna fuck this up. I fucked everything else up in my life. I'm gonna fuck this up, and I can't go on like this, feeling this way. Like, I need you to help. And then he says, you want to build a better community. You want to make life better for everybody. This is how you do it. Ellie's the cure. This is how you do it. This is how you contribute to everybody. You don't have to tell Maria.
Like a double fucking whammy of guilt there.
Yeah.
It's like,
right.
Hey, I'm sad brother, and also
you want to fucking
save
contribute.
The world.
You want to save the world. Here, I'm giving you the opportunity.
But I feel like, and I know that, you know, when you watch like the post episode stuff with Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann, they talk about, well, if it's better for the show, they'll change it and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
I think the scene in the game where Tommy decides to take Ellie is so much better. I don't know if you remember, there's a whole scene at the dam where they're like having the fucking firefight and shit. And then afterwards, Tommy observes Joel like being a dad to
Right.
Ellie and clearly caring, because Ellie's like all hyper, and talking about like everything that happened during the battle, and he's like, calm down, everything's cool. And then Tommy observes this and he goes to Maria and he's like, I gotta fucking do this.
I can't
And then they
let
get
Joel
into
go
a fight.
through the loss of.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I can't permit this. Instead of Joel convincing him, he sees it through Joel's actions. And
It's very, I mean, I'm not,
Yeah.
a critic by any means. I preferred that much more subtle approach to, maybe the showrunners felt like they didn't think that was obvious enough, that they needed to drive the point home a little bit more. Or honestly, it could be as simple as them just a ploy tactic for them to make you care about Joel more right before they fucking injure the shit out of him and make you think he's dead.
Yeah, it could be that. And another thing that I thought, Jake, and I don't know how much you remember of the game. You've played it 1,000 times, so have I. But they left out a huge scene with their first introduction to Jackson. They left out a huge part of the game. There's a scene where Ellie steals a fucking horse and is just gone. And Joel
Yeah.
and Tommy have to go find her now. So they go out together. I believe this is after Tommy agrees to take her. And Joel and Tommy go out trying to chase her down and find her. And there are raiders out there. And Ellie ends up in this house, this cabin. And the whole time you're just like, is she going to be okay? Anyways, you get to her. And then they kind of mishmashed this scene with the show. In the game, Joel and Tommy, I believe, isn't Tommy with you during this part? He is, right? Or is it just Joel?
Yeah. So like basically, Ellie finds out that Joel's giving her up to Tommy, and
so
she runs away on the horse.
She manifests her anger by just fucking grabbing a horse and going.
She doesn't want to be abandoned again. And so a bunch of shit happens, but the scene in the cabin, basically they just eliminate the whole running away part,
And the
they have
violence
that
around
whole,
it, though.
and they have that whole section happen, that whole conversation happen in
Jackson.
just in town, in Jackson. She doesn't run away or whatever. She just overhears them having that argument in the boot shop or whatever the fuck it was at. Not argument, but Joel's, upset and he wants Tommy to take her or whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I thought that it was still, I mean, the scene that you're talking about where Ellie gets upset with Joel is pretty much 1-to-1.
It is,
from
but
the show.
But it's weird. Here's the difference. Now in the game, refresh my memory. In the game, when they find Ellie, they find the horse outside the house. Are there bad guys already there, or do the bad guys show up after that scene with Ellie?
I want to say that it was.
You show up at the same time as you do?
I want to say, yeah, maybe you get to the house and then you kind of find Ellie.
And Tommy's like, Joel, we got company. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the problem is that scene with Ellie happens in the game, and it's emotionally charged. She's angry because she left. She's so upset. She's so worked up in the game that she stole a horse and just fucking fled, and forces Joel and Tommy to go try to find her. And when they do, there's this violent scene where Joel and Tommy just fucking protect her, and they kill these bandits, they kill these bad guys, and obviously proving that Ellie's not gonna be able to do this on her own, right? But she's charged because she's left. So when Joel goes up into the bedroom of this house and he finds her, she does have the conversation. She says the thing like, this is all people had to worry about, that, is what to wear. That's crazy, and then she's pissed off at Joel. And Joel knows why she left. He can only assume that's why, he knows. But so it feels, her anger feels way more earned in the game than in the show, because you don't even know how Ellie hears this conversation in the show. And then you also don't really feel like it even really bothered her, because when Joel's just bumps into her or goes into the room, he doesn't know that she's upset. And she's just like, oh, I can't believe the people. And then out of nowhere, she's like, you motherfucker, and it's like, whoa. So
I mean, it happens. Like the two scenes are identical. There's no difference.
But I think what comes before and what's after in the game set it up better. Like with that scene of her running away, I just feel like it feels more natural. Because
I don't know. I mean, in my opinion, I don't think that it really matters. But like, I don't think that it really makes a difference. Literally, what it boils down to is instead of Joel like walking in to check on her and them having this conversation, he finds out that she ran away and he chases her away, or chases her to the house. And it's really, in the game, I can understand why they would eliminate that, because in the game, really the point of it is more or less to give you a chance at having more combat and a change of scenery. Like, there's no real...
Yeah. I hear what you're saying.
There's not a whole lot of context there. There is a scene, I will admit, there is a scene on their way back where she's like kind of sulking as he's bringing her back, and she apologizes to Tommy for stealing the horse and all this stuff. That's kind of cool. And in that moment is where Joel decides to take Ellie to
Colorado.
The Colorado University or whatever. Like, I don't think they ever actually go to fucking Jackson in the game. They just see it. They see it down from the hilltop. Yeah, that's true.
They just stay at the water plant. But, yeah, I guess the only reason I felt that way is that in the game, I'll try to keep it as brief as possible. In the game, you're playing Joel, and you are not going to get blindsided, and you know Ellie's pissed because she's gone. You know that she found out somehow. In the show, there's no indication that she was even upset or she even knows this stuff. And he walks in the room, and all of a sudden she like just unloads on him. And it just seems like I keep using the phrase unearned, but it just seems like it's not as impactful, because as a viewer, it's more surprising than it is emotional for me in the show. It's just like, oh, okay, right. This is where we're at. Okay, she's upset. She's saying these things. In the game,
yeah,
I feel like it was more emotional because she obviously acted out and she stole a horse and she left and she's a mess. And then it's like when she has that conversation with him, then it's just more realized. I don't know. That was my opinion, but I understand the combat thing too.
Yeah, I guess I agree with you. I had more of a problem though with the I think all that is pacing, right? They don't have fucking all this time.
No, I know it sucks.
So like, I think what I had more of an issue with was so I don't know if you have any comments on like the scene where Ellie and Joel are arguing, because it's one of the most powerful scenes in the game, and it's one of the most powerful scenes in the show too. I mean, they're just kind of, Ellie's just kind of like throwing her heart out there about how she doesn't want to be abandoned, and Joel's just like, fuck you, go with Tommy, and then they kind of walk away from each other.
Yeah.
And I do kind of like a little bit how that plays out the same, but then Joel's like, I was thinking about stealing a horse, but that was 30 minutes ago, and now I'm going to take you or whatever. So all that's fine. I think what I had more of a problem with in terms of the pacing was how quickly they rushed the university sequence.
Is it over yet? It's not over yet. Is it?
Yeah, dude. They did the whole university sequence in like 5 minutes.
You think the whole university sequence is over? Let me say this real quick. One of the funniest parts of this episode is on the way to the university, where they talk about, like, Joel's like, you know what I would want, he said something about how he wanted to be a singer, right? And this will play in The Last of Us Part 2, and Ellie starts laughing or whatever, and then she says something like, I won't make fun of you. Tell me more or something. He goes, you already laughed at me. I'm not telling you anymore about this. You know what I mean? She's like, yeah, true. Good point.
Yeah.
Touche. But the other thing where he's being honest with her about being a contractor, and this is the funniest fucking thing, is she's just like, she goes, what did you do? Like, build houses and stuff? He's, yeah, we built houses. We built a lot of things. We were really cool. People thought we were pretty cool and stuff. And she goes, oh, like the contractor. And he's like, yeah, everyone loves us. Everyone loves contractors, which is like the biggest fucking lie in the world. But that's a play on her telling him earlier that he could have made up anything about the dam and she would believe it because she doesn't know any fucking better. So he does that to try to make himself seem cool to her. Which I think is so funny.
There's just so many like little like nuance moments with Ellie's character that are just spot on. Like how when she's teasing him about, I think she's teasing him about being a singer or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't want to talk about it. And then she's like, the contractor.
Yeah. Right.
Or something. I don't remember exactly how it played out, but it was just so.
She
plays
plays the
funny.
role of Ellie very well.
Yeah, but as far as like the university sequence goes, I mean, it's like literally start to finish in like 5 minutes.
You see some Firefly logos, right? They follow them. They get to campus.
But like it's just weird because like in the game, I think that this is one of those areas where the game can't perfectly translate to the TV show. Most of what happens of value in the university sequence is there's a section with the monkeys, which they had, in the TV show. But like so much of what you gather from the university from context perspective is through like notes you find, and Ellie comments on like the mascot of the university in like the dorm rooms and all this stuff that you come through.
And he was a big Bighorns fan and stuff, talking about sports and like.
Yeah, and like football and everything. And they do kind of touch on the football stuff while they're traveling to the university or whatever. But like, and then obviously they shortened up the fight with the Raiders a lot. Like it was only like these 4 guys that got the jump on them. And then it was by happenstance in the TV show that Joel accidentally got stabbed by a fucking bat, like a broken baseball bat, when he was tussling with this guy that just came out of nowhere. And in the TV show, in the game, there's like all of this fighting that happens, and it culminates in Joel. I don't know if you remember this. Joel and this bandit falling through a window, and Joel lands on a piece of rebar, and it impales him.
Yeah, he gets jacked, and then Ellie, while they're getting attacked, Ellie's like, Joel's leaning on her, and Ellie's like fucking taking people out, and then they get on the horse, and they fucking take off. Now, this was so much more rush, like you said, Jake, and you are right. I forgot how this one ended. But yeah, he gets stabbed, and he gets jacked up, and the listeners don't know, or maybe they do. We're hoping you've played the games or are familiar enough with the story, but this is going to segue, obviously, based on the next episode, we're going to get a little bit of Riley and Ellie. Riley was Ellie's friend when she was at the Fedra camp, and we're going to get a taste of some of their shenanigans, and I think it's going to be, for the most part, an Ellie episode. And I hope, what episode? This is 6?
Yeah.
I'm guessing they spend 7 and 8 at David's, and then 9 will be the hospital.
I guarantee you what's going to happen, and, I'm not going to bet my allowance on it, but I'll bet, a couple of donuts, that they're gonna make the audience wait, and the entire 7th episode is going to be a flashback with Ellie. And then episode 8 is going to be the whole David thing. And episode 9 is going to be the hospital thing.
I bet you this is what happens. You're right.
Because they're going to make you wait until 8 to know about Joel, what his fate was. So I can see them doing that.
Maybe
like
at the end of...
Yeah, maybe like the
Joel's
end or
waking
something.
up and he's by himself and you don't know what's going on.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. I guess what I would say, and I mentioned something to Sarah, and she didn't seem to have the same opinion as me. But like when that episode was over, I was like, that seemed really rushed to me.
Yeah, dude, they
Like
covered
that,
so much so fast in this
like
episode.
they could have almost made another like shorter episode that was just them traveling to the university and dealing with everything that was going on there. But I get that it wouldn't make a very like compelling episode because they wouldn't be able to like jump around or whatever. But I don't know. I would have rather them like episode was, I think, at least as far as the ticker on the streaming goes, it was like an hour long. If they would have made it like an hour and 15 minutes and just spent a little bit more time at the end, like building what happened, I think that it would have been a little bit more satisfying to me. I get that like it's probably from a filmmaking perspective a lot more difficult for them to do a scene like Joel falling on some fucking rebar through a window
Right.
than like him getting like accidentally stabbed. But it seems
We didn't get
it just seems that scene is just so I tell me if I'm wrong, but does that scene not seem cliche to you? Where it's just like, oh, we're having a fight and I'm totally fine. And then, oh, I look down and there's a knife in me. Like, that just seems
Yeah.
like that happens so much in TV and movies.
It'd have been
that I'm
nice
like,
if he would have got shot, or if like, what if they would have done some fucked up thing where Ellie shot at a bad guy and hit Joel in an accident or something? They could have. That would have really tweaked the narrative a little bit. But I mean, yeah, just getting stabbed and not realizing he got stabbed. Like, he did kill the guy, he put him in a chokehold and broke his neck. There were still other raiders around. I mean, they could have had him get injured a number of ways. The horse could have fucking stomped on him. He could have like.
but don't you think it would have been so much more The Last of Us for you to like see it coming and not be able to avoid it?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like in the game, you see it coming. Like he breaks through that window, you see the fucking rebar on the ground. There's nowhere for him to go,
Right.
and he just fucking lands on it.
Yeah.
And that's it. And so, and it just is just that.
Yeah, I don't know
I don't
why
know.
they didn't do that. They should have shown them exploring just like another minute or two of them just walking through the halls of the university. And then, like, you know, in the game, they do take an elevator at one point that gives way. They could have done something where Joel just loses his, you know, he has maybe an anxiety attack, loses his footing, and falls on something. You know what I mean? They already gave him the anxiety. Like, that would have been an
Yeah.
easy way to do it. Like, just make him get a little fucking nauseous and have him fall over and fucking impale himself on something. And then have Ellie have to escort him out through these halls with bandits all around. That would have been so much better than this random tussle by the horse already. I don't know. I agree with you there, too. It just seemed rushed. It just... it's fine. It was a fine episode, but I think we're getting down to brass tacks now. We're getting down, being a little more critical because we know what the show's capable of. And it would have been nice to have seen Ellie support Joel a little bit here, because even when they're on the horse, there's not a whole lot of like, oh, you're gonna be all right, Joel. It's gonna be okay. Let's get there. You know, they could have cut that up into 4, 5, 6 different, you know, jump cuts to make it feel like they've been on this horse forever, and Joel's just slowly getting sicker looking and getting sicker looking. But it was just like 1 or 2 cuts and then he's off the horse. It's like you should have just made it seem like he was really trying to hang on, and the snow should have been getting worse and worse and more just like fucking, you know, I don't know, Tempest.
I do understand maybe them not. It might be a little bit unbelievable for them to have like I mean, maybe Joel is a lot bigger than Ellie. So like the idea of her, although I guess she's going to have to do it somehow, but like carrying him, you know what I mean, is just so he's like a 200-pound dude and she's like a fucking 80-pound girl.
They could have found like some sort of dolly or some sort of moving coat rack that you find in a hotel or something, and just put him on there and had her pull it. There could have been anything, you know. Oh, there could have been a wheelchair in there. They could have thrown him on or something. You know what I mean? And she could have. But yeah, I mean, in the game, it is kind of wild that he's like putting all his weight down on her and stuff, and she's kind of dragging him along. Not that she couldn't do it, but you know, your adrenaline kicks in, you can do anything. But I mean, that was a tough moment in the game. The first time playing it, it's like, how the fuck is this going to resolve? You know, is Joel going to die here? And then you get on the horse, and then like it's like, oh yeah, he fucking died. You know, this is crazy. And then you find out maybe otherwise. But I don't know, man. This is the episode I've had the most critique on, that I think they could have done a few things differently. But we didn't even touch on the thing where Joel sees the girl that looks like his daughter, and she has a daughter, and it's like, what could have been? And like he has this moment of just realizing how caught up in his own sorriness that he is, you know. And he's just really, he is 100% the right guy for this job, and he's also not even close to being the right guy for this job. But I think it's all of that wrapped into one makes him who he is, and it makes him the fighter that he is, and it gives him that much more reason to not want to fail this time around. And it makes him that tough too. So I don't know, man. I think the character's portrayed well. I'm not a big fan of, like you said, like him being outwardly sad and crying and all of these things, because not because it's not okay to do that, but just because that doesn't
his character.
It's not the character. It doesn't align with the character we were sold in the video game. It's a big departure from who he is. And maybe not. I mean, who's to say that in the game he didn't have moments by himself, you know, that we don't see. But I mean, like, that's just it. Like, he couldn't afford to let anybody know that he was suffering on the inside, right? Because he had to hold his shit together to make this thing work. And that's part of the beauty of his character. I don't know. That's where I'm at. I liked it. Jake?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the episode. I still thought it was a really good episode. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Like I said, I mean, my two biggest gripes were Joel's emotional portrayal and the how they rushed the university at the end. But neither one of those scenes are bad.
Right.
It's just from the context of the video game, both of those things seemed a little bit off.
Yeah.
But other than that, I thought like visually, the characters, all of like the dialogue, the deliveries, everything was great, just like everything else we've seen so far. So I'm excited to see the next episode.
The carousel looks great in the trailer.
It seems like the next episode is basically just going to be the story of Left Behind. So, which, if you haven't played it, was the DLC for the original Last of Us. But I don't know. We'll have to see. I mean, maybe they'll come out of it at the end. Maybe it'll be a longer episode, and they'll get us into the David stuff after that. But it's hard to say.
Yeah.
Because and I think you brought up this point before, like, what's going to be interesting when we get to those episodes is the two characters are separated that entire time. And how are they going to handle that in the show? So
have we seen Troy Baker yet in the show at all?
Happy. I have not. I don't know if he
has a cameo.
Who knows? Maybe he's fucking David. I have no idea. But or maybe he's one of like the guys in the hospital at the end. Maybe, like you said, maybe he's the doctor or something. Like, because I haven't seen
Druckmann in there at all. I figured he'd make a cameo just to do it.
No, God, why am I fucking blanking
Nolan North?
on? No, Ashley Johnson.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't seen her either.
No.
So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. All right. Well, very good. Well, thanks for tuning in. This has been P.S. This is The Last of Us. We just talked about episode 6 of the HBO series The Last of Us, season 1. And thanks for joining us this Monday evening. And if you're listening to this after the fact, thanks for joining us at all. And we will be doing this again next Monday. And I don't have much else to say except we'll talk to you next time. All right. Until then, like The Last of Us, P.S. This is awesome.
This is awesome.